Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the Lunar Orbit podcast, where I provide timely updates and fresh thoughts on the Terra Lunar ecosystem. My name is Gerry, and today is Monday, the 28th of February, 2022. Today's episode, we're going to be covering the curve wars which are coming to Terra. We're going to be talking about the Nebular Protocol and its whitepaper drop, how you can boost your Prism staking rewards with Prism amps, and how Luna is now the second largest blockchain by total value locked. Okay, let's get into it. So, curve wars. If you're not familiar with curve finance on Ethereum, this should delve into it a little bit. It's one of the biggest money markets especially for like assets, so stablecoin swaps, that sort of thing. It's a massive protocol, and they've done a pretty interesting thing with their tokenomics and their governance. And that model has been emulated around a lot of other blockchains recently, in particular, especially in Phantom and Solana, but it's also going to make its way to Terra. So this Terra space is here with Anchor and Delphi Digital and a new protocol, Retrograde Money, which we'll talk about shortly. They got together and sort of thrashed out some of this concept. So I'm just going to play a little excerpt from that, which is a pretty decent little high-level summary on how the curve tokenomics and the VE model works.
The simple idea is that any pool that has a gauge is eligible to receive rewards and is eligible to be voted on to receive rewards. So in the case of Astroport, every single pool will have a gauge, and users will be able to vote for any pool to receive rewards. In the case of something like Anchor, it would be the different collateral types, I guess, would be the gauges, and users would be able to vote for which collateral type should receive the most rewards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. And so let's think about the importance of this too, right? The gauges that typically are going to get the most votes are typically the collateral types or the pools that are making the protocol the most money, right? And so this is very important to think about. And this is a very strong point of the VE model, is like you want to incentivize the collateral types or the pools that are making the protocol the most money, right? Because this is part of governance, is to maximize, they're the shareholders, they're the stakers, they're getting the final profits of the protocol. We want to maximize the revenue of the entire protocol.
Okay, so that was a bit of a high-level summary on how it works. I'll try to unpack that a little bit for you, because it is very complex, and it's not immediately obvious how a lot of this stuff works. So just having a quick look at the Astroport docs on staking and locking, they have kind of implemented this model already. So they've got three different tokens here: Astro, which is the native token, XAstro, and then VXAstro. So XAstro is essentially staked Astro, kind of similar to XSushi or XInverse, if you're familiar with those protocols on Ethereum. But basically, by staking it, you get a share of the governance power and the fees that are collected. Now, they've taken it one step further, which this is more like VXAstro. This is more like VE curve. Basically, if you lock this up for a period of time, you get even higher rewards and higher governance power. So it's to try and get long-term holders that have basically an alignment of values in the long-term interests of the protocol. So you can see here it's been inspired by Curve's VE model, and that's what this VXAstro represents. Now, this isn't live yet. It should be live very soon, and that hopefully will mean there's less sell pressure on the Astro token, because you haven't been able to do it. You haven't been able to do this as XAstro or VXAstro yet. So that will be interesting. Having a look at the Curve tokenomics, they explain it in further detail here, but it's basically just what I basically just said then. There's basically a boost. They call these boosties, where the longer you lock your token up front, the more of the boost that you get. Now, the issue with this is if you're locking your Curve token up for 4 years, that is an eternity in crypto to have your token locked and staked, because you can't unlock it. It's literally locked. You're not getting it back. You're just getting the yield that it generates, and it pays out, every block, I think. It's just a matter of going and claiming it. Now, on Ethereum mainnet, that's pretty expensive. So a lot of people, they want a liquid token that represents this, and that's what Convex Finance represents. So the idea there is that you deposit your Curve into the Convex app, and then Convex will stake it and max time lock it on your behalf. And by doing that, the Convex protocol gets a higher percentage of governance power because it's locking up all these tokens that people are depositing within it and getting a higher power with governance, which means it can then boost its own pools and get even further token rewards through Curve. That's the concept. So deposit your Curve into Convex. You then get the liquid staked version of that, CVX Curve, and you can now trade this. So 6 months in, you might go, actually, I don't want Curve anymore, or my staked Curve, I can now sell it rather than wait another 3.5 years for the time lock to expire. So you get higher rewards as a result of this than a normal individual would do, because Convex is basically a governance whale for Curve. And then you also get the trading fees on Curve. So the interesting thing about this is there's a new protocol that has sprung up that I mentioned earlier, Retrograde money. So these guys are essentially going to try and emulate this Curve model for basically any token that has the VE model on Terra. And one of the very first things these guys have done is they've jumped into Anchor and they're like, hey guys, have you considered a VE Anch model? So to try and unpack that a little further and how this would work, at the moment when we go to Anchor, you've got your distribution APR and your borrow APR. So this is how much it costs to borrow UST. So your UST that you borrow is basically going up. The amount that you borrow is going up. It's a bit like your home loan. That's normally about 3.5% interest. Well, you're paying 12.5% to borrow UST, which sounds like a lot, but you're getting paid 16% currently in Anchor tokens. So you're actually net positive. You're literally being paid to borrow at the moment. So that's what all this governance wars is about. It's controlling where this distribution of Anchor rewards goes. So if you considered these to be different pools that have different incentives, you might go, okay, it's going to cost, the 12% for both of them, but we'll heavily incentivize the B Luna pool with all of the rewards, which will make it cheaper to use this and more expensive to use that. So the idea is that different protocols will want to come and actually own as much of the Anch token as they can to incentivize their own pools. It's in their own interests. And the whole idea is that this becomes a net positive for Anchor. And I think this is actually a pretty cool idea. There's definitely a lot of robust discussion about it in the forums, pros and cons, but it certainly could solve some of the issues that Anchor has faced with its yield reserves being heavily depleted. So that'll be super interesting to see how it works. As I said, Astro already has this type of mechanism that will be live soon. So protocols will be trying to get as much Astro so they can boost their own LPs, their own liquidity pools, holding their own token and getting extra incentives. So on top of that, you have this thing called bribing, where the protocols can be bribed of their votes by getting, say, CVX tokens. So Retrograde themselves might start bribing some other protocols, like maybe Apollo DAO, because Apollo has a lot of Astro tokens or has a lot of Mars tokens. They might go, hey guys, if you deposit those tokens in our protocol and we'll max lock it for you, we'll give you a bunch of our governance token. Retrograde, that sort of thing. So it's very interesting to see how all this is going to play out. And Retrograde haven't released a whole lot of details just yet, but there are more coming. So I feel like this is very significant for the ecosystem. We saw the Phantom ecosystem really blow up a couple of months ago when they first started implementing these sorts of strategies. And if it's done well, it can be a net positive for the whole ecosystem. So definitely one to keep an eye on. This Terra Space, as I mentioned, is a really good listen. It is a bit technical, but it's been done very well. And all the guys in here, there's some really big brains in here, which is really cool to see. And the fact that Delphi is getting involved with Retrograde, that's quite interesting. There could well be a lot of back scratching going on between the Delphi digital incubated projects. So Anchor, Mars, what else? Anchor, sorry, I just said Anchor. Mars, Astroport, sorry, was the other one I was thinking of. So they could well be, a sort of a positive feedback loop between those protocols if they can start to implement that VE token model. Okay, so moving right along. Next up, I wanted to talk about the Nebular Protocol. So they've just released their white paper. It's basically a docs page rather than a PDF. But these guys have been around for a while, at least a good 6 months or more, building away in the background. And the whole idea behind these guys is that they want to be almost like a decentralized index protocol, so indexed funds. If you're familiar with the SET protocol on Ethereum, that's something similar. But one thing that's super interesting about this concept is that Terra is such a low-cost network. It already has a bunch of synthetic assets in Mirror. It's IBC connected to the rest of the Cosmos ecosystem. So there's going to be a lot of synthetic assets available to use in their indexes, not just crypto assets. So it's going to be really cool to see what these guys spin up. It's going to be completely decentralized and governed so people can vote on different pools and different weightings. And yeah, their docs page here, goes right into it all and the various mechanisms and the way that it works. One thing that's interesting is they have this rebalancer concept where someone could come in and deposit a particular asset that is out of balance. So if it's become deficient in the pool below its target level, you could come in with that asset and deposit it into the pool, and you get some incentives to do that, NEB rewards, that sort of thing. There's also the potential for arbitrages to come and balance out the value of this, because with index funds, you have this NAV, which is basically the value of the underlying assets within the index. So sometimes these indexes can trade at a premium or a discount to the actual assets that are within it. And arbors can come in and basically arb away that difference. So, maybe White Whale Protocol is going to get active with this and arb certain assets in and out potentially. But it's also done in a way where a user themselves can come and do that type of thing. So that's just another offering in this, explosion of TeFi that we're seeing on Terra. Super exciting times, and everything's just really heating up in a short period of time. Okay, guys, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Prism protocol. Now, you can't farm with Luna just yet. You can't farm the Prism token, but I believe that's going to be dropping in the next few days. But one thing you can do is they've got this thing called AMPS Vault. So I've just got a screenshot of my own wallet here because it shows it a bit more clearly. But the idea here is you get your Prism token and you stake it in Prism. And I think you get about a 10 or 12% return. I'll just have a quick look at that under staking. So yeah, 9.79% at the moment by staking Luna. But you also get a share of all the protocol revenues by being an X-Prism as well. And you can boost that by then sort of locking up, well, not even locking up, just pledging your X-Prism into the AMPS vault. So this is sort of similar to the Platypus Finance model, which is basically another take on the VE staking of Curve. The idea is rather than locking up for 4 years, you just deposit it in a vault, and over time you accrue extra value. Governance power slowly gets boosted. So it's the same kind of concept here, except this boosts your yield, the amount of rewards you get with your X-Prism. So this is another mechanism for incentivizing people to stake long-term and reduce sell pressure. So if you're a long-term believer in Prism, this is super enticing to do. And this Twitter thread here from Prism Watcher is fantastic. And he's basically worked out that you can expect 100+% APR if you basically boost your X-Prism rewards by putting it into the AMPS vault. So his estimation is you're going to be getting around 50% without the boost and 100% with it. So, all that really is doing is it's just giving you extra yield. And the penalty for unstaking, there isn't one. It just resets your AMPS balance back to zero as soon as you unpledge or remove any of these tokens out of here. So, the incentive really is to keep it in here and keep your AMPS going up and earning an extra boost. So that's really cool. Consider that, especially if you're already an X-Prism staker. It's basically free money at this point. If you're not planning to sell the X-Prism token, you should definitely be putting it into AMPS because it's not locked up. You can come at any time and remove this if you want to sell, but it's just extra yield for you. So definitely consider that. Okay, guys. So last up, I really just wanted to briefly mention that Terra has just exploded. Obviously, total value locked is, some people think of it as a bit of a meme because it's so reflexive on the price of assets. So, it's not that surprising that the TVL of Luna has gone up by 46% in the last month when you consider that Luna's price has basically almost doubled from its bottom recently. It's up a good 30-40%. in its actual Luna value. So it's rocketed up the charts, and it's now the second largest chain of all for its total value locked. There's Ethereum with 550 protocols at 112 billion, and Luna, Terra Luna, is already hitting 20 billion with 21 protocols. So, I mean, you can really see how much Terra is just taking over crypto at the moment. It's basically the strongest asset in all of crypto. So that's quite phenomenal. And like I said, it feels like we're just getting started. All of these new protocols are just spinning up. A lot of them haven't got much traction just yet, but the composability of them all, they're going to be, the DeFi Legos meme, that's going to be just going crazy. When you've got things like Nebula that we just talked about, index funds, you'll have index of all these different assets, all these different crypto assets, and then potentially all these different, synthetic real world assets. It's all going to drive demand for UST. All of these assets are minted with UST underpinning them, or the actual native asset used to form the pool of the index. So it's going to lock up a lot of collateral, and just that feedback loop can continue. And I fully expect to see this number just to keep booming. And in my mind, I just don't see how Luna doesn't end up probably being the third largest blockchain behind Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, it practically already is in terms of usage. So, it's super bullish right now. The whole Cosmos IBC ecosystem is exploding as well, and Luna's a part of that. It's connected via the IBC. So there's so much potential for Luna and UST to just keep growing. And it's such a good time to be involved in the ecosystem. Anyway, guys, I'll take my bull glasses off now. Just want to remind everyone, if you like this content, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. Hit the notification bell. It means a lot to me. It really helps to grow and keep this content coming. And thanks very much for watching.